And this is?
Carolina Carrasquero Ensminger.
Where are you originally from?
I was born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Okay. What do you remember most about the people in Venezuela?
The people? Well, they're my family. That's what I remember the most, right? Not having them here. One of the things I like the most about it is the climate. It's always warm.
Did you grow up with a big family? So,
I did, yes.
like cousins and uncles and all that?
That's
So-
right. I had 4 on both sides.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Did your parents grow up in Venezuela?
They did, in fact, till the point they passed away. They've lived more in Venezuela than they have ever lived in the U.S.
Do you still keep in contact with all your family?
Thankfully, to Facebook, yes, I do. Not all, but a large majority of them, yes.
Did you like it in Venezuela?
You know, to be honest, I don't really remember. I was 6 years old when I left. I think I did. We certainly had a different lifestyle, and it was a different country than it is today.
Yeah? Do you miss anything about it?
My family.
Family. What's one of your fondest memories about Venezuela?
Well, I remember getting together for birthdays and events. There were a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of family.
Yeah. What did your family do for a living before you moved here?
My dad was a chief financial officer of an airline, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, wow. What did your parents do once they got here, if you did move with your parents?
They were retired.
Oh,
They retired at the point we moved here.
okay. What do you do for work here?
Well, right at this moment, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but before that, I was in HR.
Okay. Why did you move to the U.S.?
Well, it was a decision my parents made to bring us here for 2 years to learn to speak English. And after those 2 years, the kids became accustomed to things here. I was 6 turning 8, my brother was 11 turning 13. So at the point that we thought we were going to go back, nobody wanted to leave.
Oh, yeah.
So we stayed and began the process to become naturalized citizens.
Oh, cool. How did you get here to the U.S.?
We flew from Venezuela to Miami, and we used to come to the U.S. all the time. We came here for vacations, and we already had a home in Palm Coast that we had purchased, and that's where we came and settled initially, Palm Coast, Florida.
Cool. Do you still visit Venezuela?
No,
No?
it's not really possible today. The last time I went, I was 21 years old. That was 23 years ago.
If the political climate changed, would you want to go and visit your family in Venezuela?
Absolutely, and I want my children to see where I was born and where their family comes from.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to do that in their lifetime, in my lifetime, but I'm not sure that that'll happen.
Yeah. Is there anything that you tell Venezuelans about like moving to the U.S.? Anything that?
Well, it's a different life here. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and you absolutely, I think, in my opinion, have to speak English, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't, I mean, you can't come to Jacksonville. At least that's my experience, you know.
Yeah.
And most of them don't. That's why I say that. They don't, and they don't have any interest, and they don't want to speak, you know, just like, well, you want to speak Spanish, you take Spanish class, but, you know,
Yeah.
beyond the requirement.
So what were some of the major differences in culture when coming to the U.S.?
The language. So being 6 years old, I was just a little kid. I didn't understand, and it just so happened that I would ask a question that required a yes or no answer. So for the first few months, I thought, oh my gosh, they understand me. But I didn't speak English, and they didn't speak Spanish, so we were just kind of thrown into the mix, and that was very, very difficult.
What was like another major change from living there to living here?
Another major change. Well, my parents were retired, and that's something we didn't have in Venezuela. In Venezuela, my dad worked. So having them there full time was a big difference, was a big change that we didn't have there. And then of course, the support system that you lose when you leave your family behind.
What were some different traditions that were celebrated in Venezuela but not here?
Well, there's a lot of things surrounding food, right? There's a lot of very traditional foods that we like to make, in particular around the holidays. Back in 1979, 1980, when I arrived here, it was very difficult to find those things here to recreate. So not so much holidays. The only one that we really celebrate that I can think of is Three Kings Day at the beginning of January, and that's it's almost as big as Christmas. Other than that, we celebrated all of the same things. Maybe not 4th of July, but you know.
What were some different foods that aren't traditional to the U.S.?
Well, our major food, what we identify with, is called an arepa, which is like a bread made out of basically what you make grits out of. It's a corn cake, and it's delicious. That's one of the major things that when somebody says arepa, you would identify with being from Venezuela. Colombians make one as well, but for Christmas we make something called hallaca and a bollito, which is also, they're wrapped in banana leaves. Those are things that we only traditionally make in the holidays. And then all of the things that you see many other cultures, Hispanic cultures, eat, like black beans and white rice and yuca. All of those things that other Hispanic cultures also enjoy are very traditional to us too.
Is the country you're from like developed or developing?
Well, it's developed. It's an oil-rich country, and used to live quite a healthy lifestyle. You know, so that's a hard question to answer. So in many ways, it's very backwards and developing, but I mean, it is a third world country.
How big was like the culture shock from there to here?
I feel it every day. That's true. I feel it every day.
Was it hard to find like modes of transportation from here?
No. You know, I think in our way we were a little bit different in that we planned to come and we had things waiting for us. So my parents had already purchased a home and there was a vehicle. You know, we rented a car and got to the car we purchased, etc. It might have been a different experience for some other people, but we had all of those things cared for. Now, I certainly remember arriving here and not having anything in the house and running up to Ecker Drugs, which doesn't exist now, but would be like your Walgreens, to get lawn chairs and things like that. A few days after we got here, there was a hurricane. We didn't understand what was going on. We just sat in our house with the garage door open and watched the hurricane go by. You know, those kind of things that, you know, most people wouldn't have maybe done if they'd have known better.
What was the difference in like school life from there to here?
Well, I had only gone to kindergarten. There we went to a private school, and here in order to attain the appropriate visa to stay as students, my understanding was we had to go to a public school. So that was a little bit of a culture shock going from a private to a public. But other than that, I don't, you know, we had a lot of the same resources that back then you would have had. I don't remember anything major.
For our project, we interviewed Miss Carolina. She's from Venezuela. I learned that it was hard for her to get across the language barrier. I also learned that they celebrate many other holidays like Three Kings March. I can take that it is hard to travel to a different country that has many cultural differences. I took that living in Venezuela is very different than living here. Our lives have been very different so far, as I haven't had the same struggles. I also have not ever traveled to another country.
For our project, I interviewed Miss Carolina. She is from Caracas, Venezuela, and has children. I learned that what she misses most about Venezuela is her family. I also learned that it is hard to see her family in Venezuela because it does not have a good political environment. What I can take from the interview is how hard it is to not be able to see your family, and that I should value being able to see my family every day. In my opinion, my life has been a lot easier than Carolina's because she had to pick up and move to a new place. trying to find new friends while not even knowing the language.